Let's bring him in now, the award-winning columnist from Post Media, Regina Leader Post, the esteemed Robert Vanstone. How you doing, RV? Happy New Year, my man.
Happy New Year, Rod. Nice of you to mention Craig Campbell, a great guy. Hello, Craig. What awards have I won? Do you know something I don't? The only time I won an award once, and they gave me a plaque, and it was addressed to Rod Vanstone. So I guess you're half owner of that plaque. That's my one plaque, aside from anything to do with dental hygiene.
I think you won the award for being the second best writer in your house.
And the third most intelligent living organism in my house, behind Chrysula, and the beautiful Candy. Where is she?
I like the shirt, man. Where'd you get the shirt?
It's a relic. I wore it especially for you. I saw 2 Florida Panthers games in January of 2011, and this is a Corey Stillman shirt from January of 2011. So I thought, well, what better time to dust this out of the archives, or pull this out of the archives? So.
Vintage. What a wonderful place to watch hockey. RV, I appreciate you coming on. And you may be surprised why. With the Broncos, Denver Broncos firing Vic Fangio on Sunday, I'm like, we got to get RV on. Haven't made the playoffs since 2015. I see this morning that they've asked permission to talk to the Patriots linebackers coach for the head coaching job. And I'm just wondering, what do you think the Denver Broncos need in their next head coach? Defensive coach, offensive coach, a great quarterback? Where are they going?
Well, for their last 5 head coaches have been defensive oriented. The one exception being Gary Kubiak, and they won a Super Bowl with him. I'd like to see somebody with more of an offensive persuasion, especially if they're looking to bring in a quarterback, whether it to be Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Deshaun Watson. I think you're going to need a quarterback-friendly head coach to really entice somebody of that caliber to come to Denver. I still remain to be convinced that Seattle will want to part with Russell Wilson, or that Green Bay will want to part with Aaron Rodgers. But should it happen, I think you need a quarterback who's going to provide some enticement for the player to show up there. The one that's eating at me, why did the Miami Dolphins fire Brian Flores? Why don't they just hire Brian Flores?
Been getting to the bottom of that one, and it's very simple. The general manager, Chris Greer, apparently wanted Tua, and Brian Flores, the head coach, did not. That's the word that I'm getting in South Florida. It was a power struggle internally, and the GM won this time. But there's some very unhappy fans here because Brian Flores was very popular. And appalling and outrage is the terms that I'm hearing the most about the Dolphins with that firing. It really doesn't make any sense. Nobody saw that coming. I'm going to go rapid fire with the RV. So we covered the NFL to the NHL. The Jets, they're still out of a playoff picture looking in as they stand right now. That's your number one NHL team. The Jets, go.
They just strike me as a team that is never really going to take advantage of that window or that talent pool that they've assembled there. There's always that little element missing. And I think you look at it on paper, you look at who they have, and there really isn't a flaw. A perceived flaw coming into this season was the defense. So then they went and refurbished the defense. So really, they would seem to have everything you would need from a Vezina, once upon a time Vezina trophy winning goaltender on out. But it just doesn't seem to come together. I watch this team and I follow it quite ardently. And it just seems to me to be a team that is very clinical and a team that just does not seem to have much fun. You watch the Carolina Hurricanes, you watch the Florida Panthers. Maybe it's a symptom of playing in a Canadian market where you're just constantly under scrutiny. But it just seems to me that the Winnipeg Jets just view playing the game as somewhat in a fashion that's laborious. There just isn't a lot of fun there. It's just a dour team. And I just wonder if that permeates it. I just wonder if they have the fun playing the game that, say, the Carolina Hurricanes would. And maybe them playing in an obsessive market like Winnipeg is an impediment, whereas it's easier to do in a market such as Miami or Carolina.
Can we agree, though, that the Jets should be better? Like, they've got talent that does not match their record.
And that's been the case for a while now. Even if you look at some of the deficiencies that they had in past years, it still didn't really add up. This year especially, I just don't see where there's a glaring flaw. Kevin Cheveldayoff did a really nice job during the off season of building up a defense that went from a liability to an asset. And they've got such a wealth of talent up front. And they've got Connor Hellebuck, and they've even got a decent pipeline coming up, it would seem. So what's the missing piece there? Talent doesn't guarantee anything. Look at the foibles of the Edmonton Oilers in recent weeks. And they've got two of the elite players in the National Hockey League. But the Jets who swept Edmonton last year in the playoffs, would seem to have a deeper team. They can go further beyond one line than can the Edmonton Oilers, and it just doesn't add up to me. And I'm not sure the coaching change really is going to make a difference. It's Dave Lowry, to me, that's not the type of difference maker coach that they're ultimately going to require. I'm not sure that there's really been an improvement in their play since Paul Maurice stepped down.
And we wind this up with our beloved CFL. Chris Jones and
Absolutely.
Cody Fajardo. If there's a football god, a baby Jesus football, the next great rivalry in the CFL is Cody Fajardo and Chris Jones. And I don't know how it happened or why, but it's there, Rob. And I see you've been writing about it. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
It is so scrumptious, isn't it? I grew up watching the Rough Riders and Edmonton Elks, Eskimos at the time. That was the rivalry, and there wasn't a number two rivalry for the Saskatchewan Rough Riders. It was Edmonton, Edmonton, Edmonton. They played in the West Final every year, or in the West playoffs every year, from 72 to 76. The West Final 4 straight years, and that was the rivalry. And to my way of thinking, that will always be the greatest rivalry in the history of the Rough Riders. That 1970s rivalry with Edmonton. Granted, people will now say maybe it's Winnipeg. Once upon a time, it was a fierce rivalry with Calgary. And there's still an undercurrent of that. But Chris Jones, with what he said about Cody Fajardo, has really livened it up. And if Cody Fajardo chooses to reply, and I sure hope he does, it's just going to ramp it up even more. And those teams play each other 3 times next year, including week 2. It's great. And teams should do this more often. They're in the business of selling tickets. They're in the business of generating hype. They're wondering where this lost generation has gone. They're wondering why there's empty seats. Well, they don't do a lot to market or push the product. They don't do a lot to create intrigue. They live in mortal fear of creating that bulletin board quote that's going to come back to haunt them. Well, guess what? Those bulletin board quotes create interest, which create bums in the seats, which creates, I think, the kind of electricity around the game that has been lacking, especially in 2021 when most of the games were rather dull.
Well, the odd thing about this is I think Cody, I know him pretty well. When he opens his mouth, he opens and it's word vomit, and he ends up usually apologizing for what he said. I think he just doesn't think. Jones thinks before everything he says. You've been around him enough. So I'm just sitting there going, why is Jones doing this? Why is he carving Cody? He doesn't need to. I'm just wondering, what's the impetus for this?
Yeah, and I think part of it, too, was standing up for Stephen McAdoo. And I think he could have done that had he chosen to do so without critiquing Cody Fajardo in the manner that he did. But there's obviously something very calculated there. I think there a bit of psychology is at work here because Cody, as you said, is a pretty honest guy. And when he speaks to the media, he's very genuine and doesn't hesitate to say what's on his mind. And things were clearly getting to him this past season, and the pressures were getting to him, and the social media, etc. So now, I think with Chris Jones saying what he did, I wonder if that's a calculated move to get in an opponent's head several months before those teams actually face one another.
Well, I think it may work. I guess we'll see when they hit the field. RV, lovely chat. Stay safe. Toodaloo, my friend.
Good to talk to you, Rod. Take care and enjoy the palm tree. I'm envious.
Thank you, sir. The esteemed, award-winning post-media columnist, Rob Vanstone.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for watching the RP Show on YouTube. And don't forget, we're live daily on YouTube from noon to 2 Eastern. If you like what you see, hit subscribe. And if you like the program, check around for other segments of the Rod Pedersen Show here on YouTube.